So good morning. This is a picture of my current classroom and all the hectic busyness that usually typically ensues. I'm a class of '99, but I came in 1994, so I spent 5 quality years here at Guilford. I have been teaching for the last 16 years, 7 years as a first grade kindergarten teacher, but the last 9 as a kindergarten through 5th grade science lab teacher. But it's just been in the last few years I've been really excited about what I've been doing. Despite what's happening in the North Carolina legislature, I've been enjoying my job. And it's partially thanks to Guilford that enjoyment's coming through. Guilford has helped me become a flexible thinker and a citizen that really cares to what happens in our education system. I'm going to slide it. So let me digress a little bit and tell you about what my current job is, because most people go kindergarten to 5th grade science lab teacher and a big question mark goes above their head. The reason why I have a picture of Adam Savage from Mythbusters here is I got to go see him speak, or the Mythbusters tour, which was really fun and exciting. But the very last thing he said, remember kids, the difference between science and screwing around is writing it down. And I have to say that part of that is true. I currently get to teach kindergarten through 5th grade students science. I try to make it come alive, real and interesting, sort of like these guys do for the general public. I try to grab the students when they're young, hopefully to encourage them that science is interesting and obtainable, that there's nothing to be intimidated about. For so long, many of our schools have taught science with textbooks and through the good old vinegar and baking soda volcano, which teaches you nothing about volcanoes and what's happening underneath the Earth's crust to create them, nor does it teach you about baking soda and vinegar reaction. It's surface, it's fun, it's flash. It's sort of like eating nerds for breakfast, delicious but nutritionally void. And so I try to grab the students. I mean, kids are naturally curious, especially when they're toddlers. They come out being natural scientists. They are constantly testing their environment, trying to make sense of the world they're in. I try to grab that sense of wonder when they're young and turn it into purposeful inquiry. But I was starting to feel sort of bored in my job. I was no longer thinking. I knew what objectives needed to be covered. I knew where children had difficult times learning. I knew experiments got kids excited and thrilled. I needed a spark again, something to get me thinking. I was feeling like I was sort of sleepwalking my way through teaching. That's no good. It's no good for my students. It's no good for me personally. If I was getting bored, my students would start to feel the same way. But now for the last couple of years, I've been working with the A+ Schools program, which is a program that's run from the North Carolina Arts Council. It is the largest, longest running school-based reform in the nation. A+ has been using the arts as a catalyst for creating connections and making schools engaging and meaningful and enjoyable places to learn and to teach. It is this, or not this, but the A+ that has rejuvenated my teaching career. I'm starting to look at the curriculum through new lenses. How can I teach this goal through art? How can I teach that goal through dance, visual arts? I mean, all the various arts, creative writing, science and creative writing, you know, science and dance. And I'm enjoying seeing also, since I'm working with teachers in schools, I'm enjoying seeing how little pieces of the school are sort of like parts of an ecosystem. The teacher assistants are vital to making it work. You know, the cafeteria staff are vital to making a school work. It is the teachers that are vital to making the school work. It's sort of like an ecosystem. So A+ has exposed me to that whole school way of thinking as well. And I've been enjoying it immensely. It's sort of been like having a dance party in my head. I'm sort of, all these light bulbs go on. I'll see something and go, ooh, I can make, you know, a dance with molecules and talk about transferring from solids to liquids to gases with third graders. I mean, my brain just sort of constantly goes in these popping directions. It was sort of like during serendipity when I saw the Jello pit for the first time my freshman year, and I dove in. It was scary, it was challenging, but it was a lot of fun, and that's what A+ is for me. So yeah, that was me freshman year. Don't smoke anymore. So you can go ahead, Sid. So, for example, you know, one of the objectives in first grade is measuring. Now, you know, typically you can measure this, measure that, practice it ad nauseum. How tall is this? How wide is that? And don't get me wrong, practicing, you know, repeatedly is important, but why not make it interesting? Why not make it, you know, engaging? So throw in art, throw in history, throw in geometry. So now you can cover those same objectives, measuring objects through using some art objectives. So this is a project where I had students learn about Cubist art. We talked about 3D figures, and we covered those measuring objectives. So the kids took each, you know, we talked about 3D figures, we talked about art, we had been practicing measuring, and then the kids created the cubes, or rectangular prisms, because we figured out they weren't true cubes. They took their rectangular prisms of varying different sizes, measured them, and the depth, the height, the width. They recorded them, so they practiced drawing the 3D figures in their notebooks. And then we created an art project where they created a sculpture. The students were so much more engaged during this process and came out with a lot more skills that are applicable to real-world situations. They finished up the project by writing about creating it, and they talked about what it is. So these are, but you know, analyzing your work doesn't seem that hard as an adult, but this is 6- and 7-year-olds. This is first graders analyzing their own work. That's big. They were taking a critical look at their art and at the art that we exposed them to. And it's this part of this art reasoning that shows kids how to critically think and analyze art, or through art, I should say. The more they practice those skills, the more natural they become. And as seeing this enthusiasm and this academic growth through art that has rejuvenated my teaching. So now this is where I get, well, it's going to be in 3 parts. This is, so yeah. So this is where I get to say thank you to Guilford. I came to this point in my career sort of backwards. I came to Guilford as a math major, but that lasted a hot minute. Which quickly changed to music and education. I got coerced to being a voice major by Grace, but we quickly figured out that music theory and I did not mix, and so I had an exorbitant amount of history credit. So I became a history and education major because education department made us double major. If you notice, there's no formal science education here on the collegiate level, except I did take a really cool class with Dr. Keegan, forensic science, one summer school. That is my only college science that I took here. But here at Guilford, through these different departments and things, I sort of learned to become a flexible thinker, to be a critical thinker. I was exposed to many different curriculums. It taught me to be a lifelong learner as well. So I sought out, when I graduated and I was teaching kindergarten, I started seeking out classes with the Museum of Natural Sciences in Raleigh. And I became a regular. I went to Yellowstone and Belize with them. And I mean, I was sort of a very big believer in our museum system. And it's through them that I became a science educator. But it was my time here at Guilford that got me that. So I went from a kindergarten teacher, and it's through this critical thinking, this, interpersonal relationships that I came into the science lab. I learned how to seek out professional development myself. These weren't offered by the Wake County school system. And I was following my passions. I found it fascinating. I couldn't get enough of it. And then it is through my interpersonal skills that I met up with a colleague who recognized that I had something else. I had that art spark, who suggested and introduced me into arts integration. But it's the seeds here at Guilford that led me to those paths, the interpersonal skills that brought me there. So the funny thing is, I see a lot of arts integration running sort of parallel to liberal arts. I skipped a page somewhere. It's running parallel to liberal arts. And, often during these hard budget times that our state is going through, arts are one of the first things that are cut. We don't have money, let's cut band. We don't have money, let's cut photography. Our governor was stated, he said, liberal arts, they don't train students for jobs. And I have to heartily disagree about that statement. Just as teaching through arts integration allows children use many different multiple intelligences, it also creates flexible thinkers. And so does liberal arts education. With liberal arts education, you are able to use a lot of different skill sets to solve a problem. Graduates are able to look at that problem, take it apart, look at it from different viewpoints, and put it back together again. But here at Guilford, we stress the self-reflection, which turns that critical thinking skills onto ourselves. Throughout my student teaching and many of the internships I did before, I was asked constantly, what did I do well, and what are my next steps? Not only becoming a flexible thinker matters, liberal arts studies often create students with interpersonal skills. And what I mean by that is, we not only solve these problems, a lot of people who go through technical schools learn how to solve those problems. We learn how to discuss them and to work into groups. We cannot always work in isolation. We must learn to work with others. And a liberal arts education allows that. Helps those interpersonal skills and to help us find others who may have talents to better solve the problem than we can. It is these interpersonal skills that not just help us as employees and make us valuable employees, but make us valuable employers. So I want to push aside those nerds for breakfast, and set up to the table with eggs and fruit and have a nutritious breakfast and a way of learning. So I want to say thank you to Guilford for making me a flexible learner, to provide me with interpersonal skills to seek out things that challenge me, make me excited and follow my passions. to be the best educator that I can be. I may not be the best educator, but I was given valuable skills at Guilford. I was given skills that make me think and to challenge others and to challenge myself and to learn to work with others. So I want to say thank you for Guilford, for my liberal arts, forever challenging, beloved Guilford.